Something extraordinary is unfolding right now in the UK housing market, and if you are not paying attention, you could be blindsided within months, because Britain's biggest home builders have just issued a warning so severe that it sent shockwaves through Downing Street and forced the Prime Minister into emergency talks that were never supposed to happen this soon. If you care about property prices, mortgage rates, rental costs, or simply having a roof over your head, subscribe to UK Housing Watch right now and hit the notification bell, because what I'm about to reveal affects every single person in this country. Here is what is happening. Major construction firms across the UK are saying out loud what they have been whispering for months, that they simply cannot continue building homes at the pace the government demands, and when builders stop building, everything changes. The Prime Minister walked into a crisis meeting expecting to discuss timelines and targets, but instead faced a room full of executives explaining that rising material costs, chronic labour shortages, and impossible planning regulations have created a perfect storm that no amount of political pressure can fix. One major developer reportedly told officials that they would rather mothball entire sites than continue hemorrhaging money on projects that no longer make financial sense. Now here is the part nobody is talking about. This is not just about new builds sitting empty or construction sites going quiet. This is about the entire housing ecosystem collapsing under pressure that has been building for years. When developers pull back, the ripple effects hit everyone. First-time buyers who are counting on new build schemes with lower deposits suddenly find themselves competing for a shrinking pool of existing properties, and that competition drives prices upward even as mortgage rates remain painfully high. Landlords who plan to expand their buy-to-let portfolios with new properties discover there is nothing suitable to purchase, which tightens rental supply further and pushes rents to absurd levels. Homeowners who thought their property values were stable wake up to a market where scarcity creates wild price swings. But wait, there is more complexity here than most commentators admit. The builders are not simply being difficult or greedy. Look at the numbers and you will understand their position. Construction material costs have surged dramatically since the pandemic disrupted global supply chains, and those costs have not retreated. Timber, bricks, concrete, copper wiring, and specialist components like heat pumps all cost significantly more than when these housing projects were originally budgeted. Skilled tradespeople are in desperately short supply across the country, meaning wages for bricklayers, electricians, plumbers, and roofers have risen substantially. The government's own EPC requirements, designed to make homes more energy efficient, have added thousands of pounds to the cost of each unit. Planning delays compound everything, with some developers waiting years for approval on sites that should have been straightforward, and every month of delay means more money spent on financing and more reasons to question whether the project makes sense at all. Here is where this gets really interesting for renters specifically. If you are currently renting and hoping that new supply would eventually cool the market and bring your costs down, that hope is now evaporating. The rental market in cities like Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Edinburgh, and especially London has become extraordinarily competitive, with dozens of applicants chasing every decent property that appears on Rightmove or Zoopla. Landlords can be incredibly selective, demanding multiple months of rent up front, requiring guarantors with substantial incomes, and rejecting anyone whose circumstances are not perfect. Letting agents report that queues form for viewings within hours of listings going live, and bidding wars have become normalised. Now imagine this pressure intensifying because the new homes that were supposed to relieve it simply never get built. Renters in their 20s and 30s trying to save for deposits find themselves trapped, paying ever higher rents that make saving almost impossible. It is reshaping how an entire generation thinks about housing and their future. Now let me tell you what happens next for first-time buyers, because this group faces perhaps the most frustrating situation of all. Government schemes designed to help people onto the property ladder often depend on new build homes, and if those homes are not being constructed, the schemes become useless. Mortgage lenders have already tightened their criteria significantly, running affordability calculations that reflect higher interest rates. A young couple earning decent combined salaries might have qualified easily for a mortgage in 2021, but now finds themselves stretching to afford something much smaller. Stamp duty thresholds and potential changes create additional uncertainty as buyers rush to complete before deadlines or hold back hoping for better deals that may never materialize. But here is the twist that should alarm everyone, including people who already own their homes outright. The government has staked enormous political capital on house-building targets, promising hundreds of thousands of new homes annually. When builders publicly declare they cannot meet these targets, it exposes a fundamental disconnect between political ambition and economic reality. Investor confidence wavers when governments appear unable to deliver on major infrastructure commitments. Job losses in construction and related industries would ripple through local economies. The Prime Minister's panic is not theatrical. It reflects genuine alarm at a situation spiralling beyond easy solutions. And here is the part that directly affects existing homeowners who might think they are insulated from this chaos. Property values do not exist in isolation. They respond to broader economic conditions, mortgage availability, and buyer sentiment. If first-time buyers cannot enter the market, the entire property chain seizes up. You cannot sell your 3-bedroom semi to upgrade if nobody can afford to buy your current property. Downsizers looking to release equity find fewer buyers competing for their family homes. Council tax valuations, inheritance calculations, and equity release arrangements all depend on property values remaining stable. Now consider the situation facing landlords, a group genuinely squeezed from multiple directions right now. Buy-to-let mortgage rates have increased substantially, transforming what were profitable investments into marginal propositions or outright loss makers for many. Tax changes have removed mortgage interest relief and increased transaction costs. EPC requirements mean landlords must invest thousands upgrading properties to meet minimum standards or face being unable to legally let them. Some landlords are selling up and exiting the market entirely. Normally this would create buying opportunities, but when new supply is not replacing sold stock, net rental availability actually decreases. Let me share what this means for pensioners specifically, a group often overlooked in housing discussions. Many pensioners own their homes outright and rely on that property as their primary financial asset, whether through eventual sale, equity release schemes, or simply knowing they have somewhere secure to live. Market instability threatens all of these assumptions. Pensioners considering downsizing find fewer suitable smaller properties available because those homes attract intense competition. Care home funding calculations often depend on property valuations, which means financial security in later life hangs in the balance. The intergenerational tensions over housing are not imaginary. Younger people genuinely struggle, while older people find themselves unexpectedly vulnerable too. Here is something else nobody wants to discuss openly. Repossessions are quietly rising, and a construction slowdown will make this worse, not better. When homeowners fall behind on mortgage payments and lose their properties, those homes re-enter the market at discounted prices through auctions or distressed sales. But in a market suffering from inadequate supply, repossessed homes get snapped up instantly without addressing underlying shortages. The families who lost those homes enter a rental market that has no space for them, creating homelessness pressures that local councils must address with budgets stretched impossibly thin. Wait until you hear how this connects to the broader economic strategy. Construction employs hundreds of thousands of workers and indirectly supports hundreds of thousands more in supply chains and professional services. When builders pause or reduce activity, those jobs disappear or become insecure, reducing consumer spending and tax revenues. Infrastructure projects including schools, hospitals, and transport links compete for the same materials and skilled workers. Everything happening with builders, the government, mortgage rates, and rental demand. What is your biggest housing concern right now, and what do you think should happen next? Share your perspective because your experiences matter. They help build a complete picture of what is really happening. Make sure you are subscribed to UK Housing Watch with notifications enabled, because the next update could contain information that directly affects your decisions about buying, selling, renting, or investing. The market is moving fast, the stakes are enormous, and staying informed is not optional anymore. This is the story that could define your financial future for years to come.